Alright, now we're going to look at a digital variation of the switch and how that works. So we did the setup in the last video and everything should be set up here. Now I'm going to teach you the fine art of Frankensteining code. So as you go along with the series, you probably should take notes. What we have studied so far is input and output, right? So now we put the input and output together to light an LED. Ooh. Alright, let's start out with the bare minimum. I like starting that way. And what was common? Well, I like having a serial input. This tells me what's going on. That was pretty common. We need an input first in order to make an output. And since it's a switch, a button, it's digital. Okay? So in this case, we would also state here that we need an input. Pin mode. And in this case, pin mode, what would be 9 would be the input. And then we'll use that input to light the LED. Alright. Now under void loop, we're going to need some kind of sensor. And in this case, the switch is a sensor. So initialize sensor value equals a digital read. Now we've done this before, and as I said, as you go on, you're not going to have to keep retyping it all the time, but it's good to retype it. Trust me when I say that. Okay, and that's pin 9. And we need an output as far as a visualization is concerned. So that's going to be serial period print line. And what's going to be printed out? Well, sensor value. And it's going to be in decimal format. Perfect. Let's send that over. And we have COM port not found. We have a serial port problem here. The Arduino unit is not showing up under my serial ports. So I'm going to save this. And I save this within my Arduino library here under my documents. And I'll call it our digital read. Digital input. And then we're going to look at why that is not showing up. So I'm going to unplug my Arduino unit. Again, sometimes it's handy to have the Arduino unit plugged into the actual computer and not a USB 7 or 8 port hub. But let's launch Arduino and see if that shows up. And sure enough it does, and we can just go along and open that PDE, and there we go. So that's how you or kind of like debug it. Cool. And let's say the serial monitor and make sure that's going. So we got a 0 here, that's good. And if I press the button just like before, I should see a 1. Alright, sweet. Okay, we also worked on a project with an output. So let's add that to the mix. In this case, I'm going to have to tell it which is the output. It's pin mode. In this case, I've chosen 2 as my output. just like that. And if it's an output, I have to state what is it outputting, high or low. Well, in this case, we're going to try it out. We're going to just light the LED because you always make sure things work. And then you write a if statement saying, hey, if this happens, then do it. So we're going to try this out. Digital write to high. And we'll put a delay behind that and just blink it, because that way it'll tell me that it's actually going through the loop or not. So I'll just copy this, type in low. Alright, let's shoot that code over and see what happens. So it's still going to read. This time it's going to blink, and it's still sending off the sensor data of the ones and zeros. Sure enough, LED blinks. Alright, let's write an if statement here. If sensor value equals, and I put an absolute equal there. That means it's either 1 or 0, but nothing in between. I like putting the double ones there. Now I might change that, but let's see if that works first. So if sensor value is equal, absolutely equal to 1, and then instead of a semicolon here, I open up a curly bracket. And then I'll close that bracket out down here. So as long as if equal to 1, it will do this. Okay. Let's compile that and write it out. Okay, so at least the LED is not blinking. I have a 0. What happens if I press the button? It starts blinking. Amazing, right? What happens if I let go? It stops blinking because it's a 0. That's a digital circuit right there. It's an amazing accomplishment. You ask grandma, grandpa, you ask your mom and dad, or whoever that isn't into this, if they can write a small if statement that says, hey, if something happens via hardware, can another event happen? And they're going to be like, what? Until you show them the Arduino and you become a super hacker overnight just because you wrote like 12 lines of code. It gets better. So let's go on to the next video where we can kind of look at something else we can do with this logic. All right, meet you there.